City. I think we're live. Yes, we are. Look at us. What's happening, sir? You were pretty good on yesterday's analysis, I thought, especially regarding Montgomery versus Alvarez. I thought you nailed that.
It was so fun to watch him attack and have all that in mind and just kind of watch it play. And man, that was that first or the second at bat. I can't remember which one. We were just abusing him inside.
Yeah. And the first one, he tried to go away with the curveball, missed his spot, and then nailed it later on. He basically did exactly right. Although I think Alvarez had an auto take on a 2-0 pitch, took the sinker, and then ended up getting him on a well-tunneled curveball away. What's up, everybody? Are we excited for some pitching today? I know we are. We've got to be.
Oh, man.
I've never seen Codify's face.
I'm sorry.
You're a lucky dude.
Luck runs out, my friend.
Yeah. We can blur him if you want.
Yep.
I mean, not everybody could be as attractive as Pitching Ninja. That's just the way it is. That's why I have Fisher around.
Ouch.
I'm just kidding, dude.
Shots fired. All right, give me a year. I'll grow an iconic beard, and we'll see what happens.
You really? You think you're growing this good?
Hell no.
Yeah, I mean, that's like
not a chance.
Wait, somebody from Israel's on here. Wow, look at that. Very cool. So let's talk about like today. I'm loving the matchups. I mean, I actually ended up betting on all 4 pitchers today, and I like them all. Like they're all guys that I enjoy watching. So I'm excited about today's games. What do you want to start with? Pick one.
Eeny meeny. We can do Eovaldi first, I guess.
Yeah, let's try.
My desktop is covered with stuff.
So yeah, and I mean, generally, Nasty Nate in big games is a stud. He's a horse. He's an ace. He's one of those guys that you got to watch. Even stemming back from that legendary appearance he had, saving the Red Sox a while back. But he's just, I mean, he always seems to rise to the occasion. And it's like just a guy I like watching. His stuff isn't that flashy to me. I don't know if you've seen it in his maps, but like he's just good.
Yeah, I mean, I watch him a lot, not just because he's awesome, but I work with Kevin Gosman, so I'm a little more attracted to the fastball splitty guys. But of course, Eovaldi throws more than that.
Yeah,
and I know I've talked to Gosman a couple times about, hey, look, this guy's got a curveball too, and what could you do with that? And
he said nothing. I throw a slider.
He's like,
F yourself.
Right. Excuse me. Have you seen how I do with 2 pitches with an occasional slider? It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Who has the most beautiful mechanics in MLB? That's a tough question. Most prettiest mechanics. Who do I watch and say, let me think about that a little bit. Because I mean, I obviously love DeGrom. He's one of those guys that I just think is fluid and throws well. Strider for being explosive. I really like that too. But it really depends. Like, I don't know. I enjoy everything because different people can get the most out of mechanics, and there's no like one size fits all. And that's one of those things that the more you look at it, the more you notice, even though a lot of analysts will sit there and go, see, you got to do this, you got to do that. And there's so many exceptions to the rule that it's just silly to do. And Zack Gallen's one of those guys. I did a Guess That Pitcher Day with Gallen, and he's just very efficient and moves well and doesn't try to do too much. Someone from Japan, look at that. Love it.
Yeah, I think we all watch differently as far as mechanics go, right? I mean, we're sitting there with Tom House, and he's looking at everything up to the point that they released the baseball, where we're looking a little bit more after. We see mechanical flaws and all that stuff, but we're more like, hey, these are like fingerprints. Everybody's different. Everybody brought different things to the battle, and we're not going to change any of that today. So it's mechanics are a huge topic in certainly Codify circles and ninja circles away from the game and talking this and that. But during the game, it's usually
you can't. If you start thinking mechanics, you're screwed.
No.
I know Tom likes Shane McClanahan a lot because of his little leapy, jumpy thing, which is fun. And I talked to Shane about that. He didn't realize he was doing it. He just thinks of himself as like pushing off the rubber or whatever.
Jumping.
He jumps, which must mess up hitters, and he gets great extensions. So that's fun. So all right, so we're starting on Nate. Nate's splitter cannot have nearly as good blue as like Kevin Gosman's splitter does, right? Like visually, I don't see it, but you tell me.
No, it certainly doesn't. However, I'd have him top 10%. I mean,
okay, yeah,
he's got a lot. It's something that he should and does use often, and he's going to need it today for sure.
Yeah. What's his best pitch against this lineup?
Well, I mean, he's got a lot of splitter blue. Fastball is this sounds familiar. We talked about this yesterday with the other guys, but he's got blue up top with the fastball, but damn, you cannot miss.
So it's a very narrow strip of blue, just above
it's not bad, but it's up along the ridge, and it might be a foot tall. I mean, it's a decent target, but I mean, like Alvarez has none. Like, I mean, throw splitters and high cutters or something to Alvarez or something, because it looks pretty nasty. That's not a good matchup for him. And Bregman, I mean, when I look at Bregman's maps against some of these guys, I'm like, I know he's right-handed, but these look like left-handed stud maps. He's amazing. And all these guys keyed up in the playoffs too. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Yesterday was amazing to see a team like that shut out.
Yeah. I mean, just by playing, like very few mistakes. And after our discussion, you go back and watch the game, and especially looking at the charts of how they actually pitched Jordan. And it was, they may have had little room for error, but they made no errors. I mean, the only error they made wasn't a pitch that he was going to swing at. It was again, a 2-0 pitch that was in the zone, that was well placed in the zone. I mean, it was a low sinker. But other than that, it was just basically all along the outside, going away with curveballs, missed with one curveball that was in, that was supposed to be away, still got the whiff on it. Just a masterclass of pitching last night, I thought.
Yeah, I'll just say this without saying who said it, but talking to a major league hitter who told me something interesting not too long ago, which was when a pitcher is demonstrating they're hitting the edges and they're working all over the edges, even if it might only be 2 edges, but maybe it's 3 or 4, but he's going edge, 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 edge. When they miss, it's less devastating to the pitcher because it's kind of a surprise that the guy missed versus a guy where you're like, I'm waiting for you to miss. I know you're going to miss. I'm going to decimate this baseball. With Montgomery, you're like, shit, this guy may not miss today. Yeah. And like, which edge is he going at, or he's going out here, and what should I do? So if you look back at a pitch chart, I mean, you can see there were some baseballs in the heart of the plate every now and then, but they were like surprising to the Astros. It's a really interesting dynamic if you think about it.
Yeah. And you touch on something interesting too, because like everybody sits there, and I had this argument over and over again with folks about, Strider throwing a middle 100. Number one, if every pitcher knows to stay away from the middle of the plate, if you're a hitter, are you looking for pitches over the middle of the plate, or are you looking for pitches where the pitcher's probably going to attack you and I'm going to have to deal with that? You're probably making an adjustment. So sometimes throwing over the middle of the plate is actually a surprise in a sequence. And that's just what you were describing. It's like, if the guy is showing the ability to go up above the zone and somehow it leaks over the plate, you're not expecting it. And that's why he gets such good results, as well as just the characteristics of his fastball in general.
Strider's documented talking to you saying, I'm not going to waste pitches. We know that he's being aggressive and staying near the zone. He's not trying to throw middle to just about anybody, except for very count specific situations. That's just, he knows he misses there 10% of the time. He throws you some. It's still a lethal, nasty fastball. It's really hard to hit there. And no one knows it's coming in middle until it does. So, he's not aiming there, and that's not no one's defending. Well, I don't think you are defending like that should be a strategy, is just for him to just chuck down the middle, because it's not, he doesn't need to do that. He has a better path.
Yeah. And well, and in effect, I mean, that's what the Rays do, is they tell their pitchers, throw down the middle and let, you're not going to hit the middle anyway. Like y'all just don't throw that accurately. Right. Throw the ball down the middle, let the pitches do the work and don't think too much about it. And that's been the Rays' success. You're seeing a few more pitchers doing stuff like that. Let's see what reliever would make the best starter. I mean, I really like, Ryan Presley for his stuff, I think would be a pretty good starter too. Like I could see that happen. I mean, he's got a number of different pitches that can beat you. I'd love Duran as a starter just because it would be sick. Anyway, so let's go back to so Nasty Nate, you're saying splitters today against most folks. That's where you're seeing the most blue.
Oh, it's crazy blue to righties, but he's got it to everybody. So, I don't think you're going to see a big shift from what he normally does, and he'll keep that mixed in, and it'll be interesting to see what he does. And who knows what I don't know what his intel shows for someone like Bregman, where you're just like, shit, I don't have anything to throw this guy but splitters. Did you see that change up yesterday Montgomery threw to Bregman that almost lost his shirt? Yeah. It's that kind of thing. If you're going to beat Bregman, it's with the off-speedy stuff, which, some people don't think of a splitter as a changeup, but you're just holding it differently if you think about it. So that change of pace can be really devastating to a guy like that. So I don't think he'll attack with speed. Eovaldi's slider map to Bregman is about the reddest map I've ever seen for anyone, anywhere, any combination. So
you're saying don't throw a slider to Bregman if you're Nate.
And he has thrown sliders to Bregman. So watch for a slider to Bregman and see what happens with it.
Yeah. So if you're like Zach Hampel sitting there, you may want to bring your net and catch a ball or whatever. And hey, start a slider. Go get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Framber?
Well, there's a guy who I can't help but watch and count ground outs.
I want strikeouts because I've got him. I've got him for 5Ks today and Nate for 5Ks. I feel I went a little soft on their numbers because I know you're going to be subject to being pulled early, whatever. And and Framber is one of those guys. He can get Ks, but he's also a ground ball machine.
He is a ground ball machine. I think we had a Rushmore of ground ball pitchers once, didn't we? And it's Logan Webb and Framber and Marcus Stroman. Are always the first three that come to mind. But he gets tons of stuff on the ground. And it's a big advantage for him to, he knows that. So he can attack and not fiddle around with nibbling here and there. I did notice when I looked at his historicals against Rangers that he does attack each guy a bit differently. So watch for Seager, just tons of cutters, and some sinkers in. That'll be a really interesting, and Simeon will get a lot of sinkers and curves. And the maps look like those are good ideas for Framber. So
who's his worst matchup?
Yeah, well,
who is the best?
I have to look at the sinker. Yeah, I have to look at the sinker. It's funny. Simeon is up there. Garcia's got a lot. If he misses in on the heart, he's got a lot of red there. But all of the righties have nice strips of blue for Framber, all around the outside and upper edge, and even a little bit in. It's a pretty good looking map for a guy that can throw his sinker where he wants. So watch what happens when sinkers to righties are. It's not newsflash, but what happens when he misses into the heart? Because that's where that pitch is hittable.
He's been very uneven this year too. He's had some really, really good games, and then sometimes you're looking like, is this the same pitcher even? And right. I'm hoping he's locked in today because again, I need 5 strikeouts from him. But also I just want to see a good game. Like I like both of these pitchers. I think it's I'd like to see them at their best and see what happens. I thought yesterday's game was a really good game to watch if you like pitching, because both guys were attacking well. I thought Verlander struggled at first. Like, he was having a hard time getting swings and misses, and then locked in, and all of a sudden, looked solid. And I felt almost good about my K props yesterday, where I had him for 6. He got 5. Could have had one more. Help me out.
That only got one fastball in the first inning. And then he got abused by the number 9 hitter with a 4-pitch walk and a homer, was it?
Yeah, so, that homer was on a terrible pitch too.
Yeah,
that was a hanging slaughter. Who is the best fastball in baseball? Best fastball in baseball, and I assume this is other than Jacob deGrom, because he's not it. Like, give me Jacob deGrom all day for anything when he's healthy. I think. Like, generally, who do you have as best fastball?
Let's just start with Strider.
Yeah.
Near elite velocity, elite rise, which is the first thing we look at. And tell me who's better.
Well, I mean, to me, deGrom's better at hitting locations. Like, if you give him, his command is nuts. Like, if you gave me a choice between those two, a healthy deGrom there's nobody better than him, right?
Right. If we're talking about people that aren't pitching right now. Sure.
That's mean.
Randy John, no.
Right.
No, I mean, there's no.
Good. I'm seeing a comment. Is Chapman good? Good for good for fun if you like randomness and
entertaining as hell.
Yeah, he really is.
That was really something yesterday. And does anybody, myself included, appreciate how the difference in how that ball could have been hit to be a home run is on the bat is just nothing. And ends up being that tragic double play. I mean, it could have easily been a 2-run homer.
Well, if it was just over a tiny bit too,
just a little bit. But I'm not talking about the distance out there. I'm talking about the distance on the bat. It's just nothing. It's just nothing.
Oh, I thought it was going off the bat, actually. Like, I saw it. I've seen so many Bregman home runs in that location that was a home run to me, and it just wasn't.
You have to use them, though.
Yeah. Right, you do, because they just don't have the depth. And again, the dude can hit. He's hit what, 104 this year. I mean, he's rounding up. And he can still he can still throw hard, and it's fun to watch in that way. And I'd never want to get into a fight with that dude. He's a big dude.
Or get a tattoo with him.
Yeah, probably so.
Enormous, though, for Montgomery to go that deep yesterday, and what that means today. I mean, can you imagine if he got blown out in the 3rd inning or something, and they had to call everybody in and try to salvage a game? And what would that mean today? And so that was really big.
And that was literally what we were saying during the game. I said, I mean, Montgomery, I thought if I was going to bet on a guy going deep, he was my guy, because I knew they'd give him all the chances to go deep because the bullpen isn't there. And also, it's just, game, you don't want to show all your cards. There's a number of reasons why you don't want to do it. But he did everything he was asked yesterday. It was a very, very good performance by him. And not to take away anything from Verlander, who was good other than the first couple of innings. Certainly good enough to win. Montgomery was almost flawless. Like, it was a really good outing for Montgomery.
Right. And I think we'd agree that it wasn't flashy good. It was just
he's never flashy good.
Just steady good. Yeah. And that's Montgomery is, like we said yesterday, one of the steadier guys. It doesn't always feel that way, and you tend to remember, certainly if you're a Yankees fan, I'm sure you remember every bad pitch he ever threw for the Yankees or whatever, but the Yankees aren't playing right now, and they gave him away. So,
and apparently said he wasn't a big game pitcher, which that seems really not a good take.
Yeah.
He certainly looked like a big game pitcher yesterday, and he has. Mm-hmm. Like, he's been really, really good for them, stepped up when he needed to. How do you not appreciate that? Like, again, tip your cap to him. Really, really good performance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go touch, and then we can go back to the bullpens. You want to touch on the 2 Zacks going today? 2 of my favorite pitchers to watch. And again, are they flashy? Yeah. Like, you know what? Actually, I do think, like, Wheeler to me has a low heartbeat, and his stuff a little like deGrom light to me. and sometimes like DeGrom heavy because he can be like he's still pitching and Jacob's sitting there watching it. But he's got when he's on and he's been on in big games, dominant stuff. Gallen is just a brilliant pitcher. He's a brilliant pitcher to me. Like he is, if you love pitching, there's very few guys to watch that will entertain you more than Zack Gallen when he's on. Just great. The knuckle curve is filthy, mixes up pitches, not afraid to triple up on them. Scouts with the best of them, can go deep in games. Love that dude. What you got?
You know, Gallen, I'm guilty of looking at his numbers this year and just going, how are his numbers look not why don't they look better? I mean, I watch him and just feel like he's a better pitcher than his numbers show. And he is.
He's had some games where he got shelled. Like he where he just didn't have, mostly when he doesn't have his knuckle curve. And you could tell early on in the game, if you see him land knuckle curves, it's going to be a Zack Gallen day. If he can't, people eliminate stuff. And, you know, his fastball's still good. But if you're looking for it, it's not going to be that hard to hit.
He's interesting with his knuckle curve and the shape of it and how, I mean, it's pretty normal in Codify maps to kind of see generalities of like your curveball is generally this good to lefties and generally this good to righties. And then there's differences hitter to hitter. But he has much more stark differences than normal. Like, I mean, Schwarber, not so great. But then, you know, a Marsh.
How would he attack? What do you got on Harper person?
Well, let's see.
Well, that's not good. I don't like that laugh.
The good news is he has opportunities with each pitch to Harper. I got to look and see how he's attacked him when he's faced him, which it hasn't been too many times. Yeah, staying in on him. Staying in and changeups. Yeah, I can see that. He really doesn't have that much changeup blue. I don't blame him for wanting to try to slow his bat down a little bit. That I'd be doing back foot sliders and just praying I could hit the spot up top with the fastball. He's going inside with the cutter. There's not really any sign that that's great. We see pitch to pitch it is. But that's not a really good longer term.
Does he have the dead zone cutter, like just under his hands type of thing working, or no?
Not as much as you'd see in a normal righty lefty cutter, unfortunately.
He's struggled with that pitch from time to time. Like I've talked to him about that, and he's never been totally happy with it. I think he feels better about it now, but it's still not his knuckle curve is his thing. His changeup, interestingly, he's been throwing that same thing since he was in Little League. But he threw it. It used to be his fastball. It's like a 3-finger fastball because he couldn't hold the ball, and then he realized that was a changeup, and at higher levels. So he's very, very comfortable with that. Probably they're going to be trying to lay off his knuckle curve, I assume. So maybe see some extra changeups.
Yeah, I mean, I pulled up all of his at-bats last 2 years, I think, to Trey Turner, and it's like all fastballs and cutters. There's a couple of curves, but just heavy, heavy, heavy speed, whether it be a cut or not. So interesting. It's interesting to see that he does vary from guy to guy, and one pitch is a good weapon to one guy, and it's not so great to another. So,
he's one of those guys that can do that though. Like he is an insane, and he's an insane dude at scouting, hitting, and he really believes in doing his homework. Again, if you're out there watching the game, I look early on if he's landing if his knuckle curve is ending up below the zone like he wants it and it looks sharp, he's in for a good day. And he was last time out. I thought the game before that he got a win, and I didn't think he had his best stuff. I thought he just worked his way through it. And last time out was sharp Gallen, and I knew that from the very beginning. And it was, when he does that, he can strike out double digits. It just depends what you got.
Yeah, you don't see too often. I mean, I have a certain cutoff from the map where I don't bother showing info because it doesn't matter. That's 3 feet outside or whatever. But he has curveball blue to some guys, like all the way down to the bottom of what I showed, like a Glasnow, I'm talking elite, and I don't know how often people think of him as having an elite outside of conversations like this.
I definitely think of him as
absolutely. Yeah. I think his curveball is underrated for sure.
Yeah, because it doesn't have ridiculously high spin, but he disguises it well, and he tunnels it really well. So he has some of my best tunneling stuff. Do you think the ball in Japan matters when players come to MLB? I actually talked to Senga about it, and Senga told me the ball's a little bigger, a little harder, so it feels more like a cue ball. It took him a tiny bit to get used to it. No velo drop. And once he got used to it, what you saw during the season is there's no drama coming over from Japan. Certainly not for him. And I do not think a guy like Yamamoto to me is not only I view him like Pedro Martinez. I view that guy like he can be that type of player. I mean, Pedro light. How about that? Because I'm not putting that on anybody to say he's Pedro, but could he be an ace? Absolutely. And I think Sasaki has even a better time adjusting because he's 6'4", and Senga's got big hands too, right? Senga, I shook hands with Senga, and his hand is almost like double jointed big. Like he's got long fingers, so I could see why he wouldn't have his hard time adjusting. And I would imagine Sasaki would not have a hard time adjusting either.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how those guys do. The ceiling is pretty high for those guys you mentioned, for sure.
Yeah,
and it certainly plays. Anybody saying, "Well, Japan's AA baseball or whatever"? No,
it's definitely not AA baseball.
And go look at how other guys have done that came over and how they did before they came over and line it up, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it's pretty good.
And Yamamoto may be you could argue based on his stats, he's the best of them. He's the best of the guys that came over. Look at him, compare him versus Shohei's stats. He's just a pitcher, throws decently hard, upper 90s with elite command and elite pitch mix. Like he knows how to pitch. He is going to be a problem in this league. And Sasaki is, arguably the best prospect of all time coming into MLB. Like I can't say enough good things about him. They should pay him whatever he wants. He's going to be that good. Yamamoto, same thing. The Mets, I want to see Senga and Yamamoto on the same staff. I think that would be fun. Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun.
Appreciating those guys looking at their game logs. I mean, you see the stats and you see like Yamamoto, like, okay, he's got a 130 ERA, but like appreciate, like, how do you do that as a starter? And what does every game look like game to game? Like, okay, I pitched 6 and gave up a run. My ERA went up. Like,
right. Well, you compare it again. You compare it to Trevor Bauer, who went over there, and Bauer said, I watched one of his videos where he said, I could throw like 100 shutout innings in a row, or retire the next 100 whatever it was, and my ERA would not be as low as Yamamoto's ERA. Right. That's how good he is. So you're talking about a Cy Young winner in MLB. Comparing himself to that guy in the same league and going, he's ridiculous. Like that's incredible. So the rest days do come into play. Yeah, they do have a longer rest, but it's absolutely like look how folks have done when they came over. Like it's been really good, and some take longer to adjust. Kikuchi's been fantastic this year at times too.
If Yamamoto's negotiating a contract and says part of the deal is I pitch once a week, I mean,
do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Pitch whenever you want. Just tell me when you're pitching.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, I know it can be disruptive and all that stuff, but like it's a huge net gain. So I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Right. Yeah. I think I would love to have him on any pitching staff in baseball, and he would fit in. There's not a pitching staff in baseball that would not be made better by having him. And he is the core of a Mets staff. Like him and Senga and build around it are a core to a really good pitching staff.
Keep him healthy. Pitch him once. If he has to pitch once a week, you get 25 starts from that guy. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah. I mean, you have to.
How many more games to do in?
So who else we got? Wheeler. What do you got?
We got Wheeler.
Yeah, I've heard of him. He's pretty good.
He's all right. He's some kid. I've heard of him. Yeah, I mean Wheeler in the postseason. Are you kidding?
Right.
Isn't it lowest whip ever?
Yeah.
Depending on 30 innings or whatever.
And there's no luck. Like, he is precise. He has a plan. His stuff is that good. Adding the sweeper, I thought, was a big deal for him because his slider was more DeGrom-like slider, you know, the hard cutter slider type thing. And now he's got a real breaking pitch. I thought, and I don't know, I didn't even look, but it seems to me like his two-seamer has been either used more or looks nastier this year to me. Like, he has one of the filthiest two-seamers of the year this year where he almost killed a dude.
He's interesting. I don't always subject myself to the audio from the broadcasters during the playoff games.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on my mood, but I don't know how often they mention when Wheeler pitches, but how much his pitch mix differs, lefties versus righties. And you talk about a two-seamer, which is just amazing, but you're not going to see him throw it to lefties at all. And a huge thing, this whole sweeper slider thing, there are some guys that have both. He's one of them, and he's throwing sweepers to righties, but he's throwing a more of a gyro-y, slidery, traditionally one to lefties. And it's really interesting to see because look, he's amazing. There are opportunities untapped. If I get 10 minutes with him, I'll show him. But there are opportunities where he could use sweepers to lefties very effectively and sliders to righties. But he doesn't do it.
He doesn't do it, right? It's totally bifurcated. Which is interesting because it's the same thing we've talked about with like right on right changes. Like people don't like same side change ups just because they've been told like their whole career that's not going to work. And I remember talking with Corbin Burns about his backdoor cutter, and he was like, for the longest time, he thought it wasn't going to work because it was going to leak over the plate and it was going to get hammered. And then the analytics guys got to him and said, hey, you ever try this? This is a good pitch. And he started throwing it, and all of a sudden everybody would take it because it started off the plate, just catch the zone. There's a lot of importance to analytics in the game. Wheeler is one of those guys that maybe could look at that a little more, but he doesn't need to change anything right now. Honestly, like he's absolutely elite in the postseason.
He doesn't. I just think about these guys that like the surprise factor. And like, if you're scouting Zack Wheeler, you're like, look, I'm a right-handed hitter. I'm going to get the sweeper. I'm not going to get this weird slider. What if I did? How surprising is that? Or vice versa. And there's nothing in these numbers to suggest it wouldn't be effective in both cases, well located at all. And he obviously can throw them to certain-handed pitchers with complete confidence. So the biggest question first would be in a 10-minute interview, why don't you do this? And every once in a while you get a guy saying, well, there's just something in my head about locating it to the same spot when there's a guy standing there or whatever. But it's hard to imagine that's a thing with him. So. Yeah,
right. McCullers talked about like throwing to dead spaces is kind of tougher where you have to start it not at a hitter, but you have to like an imaginary hitter and then, have it break. And it's hard for some guys to just do that.
Right. It can be hard to command that horizontal, but he sure doesn't mind doing, sweeping to.
He's got a great pitching coach who I'm sure has looked at and maybe talked to him about it too. Like, they're smart, the Phillies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we'll see. I'm not advocating sinkers to lefties or anything like that. But
who's your favorite arm out of the Phillies bullpen?
Ooh.
They have and maybe limit it to this matchup. Like, who would be?
Let me pull up their page. Highest
leverage, dude.
I thought Nick Cage was pretty good.
Yes, yeah, that was it. That was. I was amazing how many people didn't pick up on that.
Pick up on what?
That it was. Yeah.
No, I'm just. Yeah. Come on, man.
I know how you're going.
My favorite. Well, look, I always see Kimbrel's legacy when he's out there. And it's awesome to see him keep adding to that.
Right. He's pitching well and doing the same thing he's always done.
Yeah.
Those two pitches. That's what he does.
I mean, Soto's, I just think Chapman every time I see him, which is unfair, by the way. But
to who?
To Chapman. No. See, I can do it.
Yeah.
Alvarado. I know we both love Alvarado. So
yeah, like to me, when he's anywhere near the zone, he's the most unhittable dude out there. Like those 96 mile an hour cutters he throws sometimes is unfair tunneling it with a 99-mile-an-hour sinker or a 100-mile-an-hour sinker. I really love Kirkering too. I've said before the entire postseason, he's an X factor. He's got what? I mean, his 3,000 RPM slider, can touch 100. No fear, nothing. You don't see any fear in that guy, none.
Right.
And he's a rookie that's just made it up the entire chain this year. And he is going to be good for a long time if he keeps that low heartbeat with ridiculous stuff. I can't say enough good things about that guy too. So, I mean, I love their bullpen. Like, I know it's always been Phillies bullpen sucks. This bullpen does not suck. This bullpen is
right.
When they're reasonably on, they're elite.
Right. And they know it's not a theory. They can mix and match and throw a guy in there in the 6th instead of the 8th and disrupt these roles. And it's like, it still works. And I think it not only works, but it seems like the Phillies believe that, like they all believe they could do that if they need to. And that's not a generic thing. That does not happen with every team.
Right.
So that's certainly a plus for them.
Yeah. I think the Astros can do it too. Like, we have two really deep bullpens, and the D-backs, they've kind of surprised the hell out of me, actually. Mm-hmm. Again, like, I ignored Ginkel the entire season. And what does he do? He just looks unfreaking hittable right now. Like, confidence out the roof, stuff out the roof. I mean, I've given him credit. Like, he's proven my ignoring him wrong. And now I don't ignore him. Like, you just do that. We talked preseason. Yeah. This is a mistake I made preseason, and I admitted that this was wrong. I had Garrett Cole outside my top 10 starting pitchers based on last year.
It's the home runs.
Right. And he adjusted. And if you have him outside your top 10 starting pitchers now, you're insane, because he's arguably one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But you're at the start of the season, you're saying, well, I know the adjustment in theory, but
but is he going to do it? Can he do it?
It's not like he hasn't tried to do it already. So what's going to happen? So
so
I'm necessarily bet on it.
Right. I mean, I could admit that was totally wrong, and he proved it. Like, that's what you do. You prove somebody wrong.
Well,
Gallen over under 5.5 Ks. What do you got, Fisher? I know I have him over, but I'm pitcher biased a lot.
Straight up, or you give me some odds?
I mean, there's a little odds, but I think that's fairly close
120, 130 kind of thing.
Yeah. My worry is postseason. Take it.
Yeah.
All right.
No, take it. No, they're going to let him. They're going to let him out there.
All right, everybody out there, what do you have? If I have Eovaldi and Framber at 5 Ks and both Zacks at 6 Ks, who's going to mess me up? Who's the one that's least likely to get their number? What do you think, Fisher? Who's going to? Yeah, you don't have to give an answer. I'll let these guys answer it first. But
I mean, you think about Framber. It's like, if you face 20 hitters, then 3 of them were Seager and Simeon.
Yeah,
But
is he capable of? I mean, he's also capable of a double-digit strikeout game, like he's done.
Sure.
Like,
he's one of those guys.
Yeah, he is, definitely. Nate, I'm just counting on him being out there for a long time. Yeah, Framber is. Everybody's saying Framber. I don't doubt that that's the one that's a little weaker.
I think so.
Because they also have the ability to go to the bullpen the second he struggles.
He gets so many. You can tell he's not pitching for strikeouts, which just a lot of times I mock. Like, of course, you're trying to miss bats. That's part of, like, not hitting bats firmly, and don't pretend you can hit parts of bats that you're that good. But if it's ever true with anybody, it's true with these guys like Logan Webb or like Framber Valdez or Stroh when he's on, where it's just like, actually, every ball that comes off these guys' bats is in the ground. So these guys, if you look at his pitch patterns, he's like, screw it.
Yeah.
Sinker. And those aren't, he's not going to strike guys out with that.
Yeah, I did dial Framber down a little bit. The 5K number I thought was doable. I didn't want to go above that. But, I mean, when I was doing it, that was my fear too, is that I look for guys that are definitely you're going to err on the side of leaving him in longer. I don't think he's one of those guys. I think that Gallen is one of those guys. Like, you're going to, could he see the 7th inning? Yeah, he could see the 7th inning. And Wheeler's proven to be able to, even though he's got a good bullpen behind him, he's their horse. So can he go to the 7th? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's interesting. We don't know, but how different will it be today versus if they had won the first game? And where's the patience level? And not to say something super obvious, but I will anyway. Like, they don't want to lose tonight, and so there's a little bit of extra in there that wouldn't have been there if they won the first game. Like, they need to win tonight. So
yeah,
that's a shorter leash for a guy like that when you have that bullpen. So.
Yeah. So pick up Ks early and then cruise and get me my 5 Ks. That's all I ask. Will the slutter make a greater impact in pitching like the sweeper? No, it will not. Because the slutter isn't real. Like, it's a hybrid between a cutter and a slider, and most guys don't even call it that. Gallen did. Like, Gallen absolutely views his pitch as a slutter. So does Tyler Glass now. But not a lot do. When it came up on scoreboards this year, it was because people were hitting the wrong button. They were trying to say sweeper and they said slutter. They're not the same pitch. They're not close to the same pitch. It's basically a baby slider in between a slider break and a cutter break. And it's just a dude's pitch. That's what we say. Like,
right.
So no, I do not think it will be as big. Although Gallen, when you see it, you can definitely call Gallen's slider or cutter a slutter because he'd like that. That's what
we should do a whole episode on pitch classification.
Yeah, we should.
There's so much to talk about.
Yeah, I agree. And it does vary. A lot of times what the pitcher calls it. Like, you have to go with something. It's not sometimes obvious. Sometimes, like, I'm seeing cutters. Right. Yeah, I'm seeing guys that are throwing things that they call cutters that are basically sliders. Like, a cutter is a cut fat, like it's got a little bit of break, a little bit. Like, Class A is a hard cutter. But sometimes you'll definitely see it cut. And other times, like Camilo Duvall, I don't see a lot. I think he gets called a cutter, and most of them don't seem to do anything. Right. They're not cutting. They're just fastballs.
Yeah, no, it's day one with anybody that works with Codify is reviewing their pitches and making sure, even if StatCast calls it something and I think it looks like something, make sure that they call it that, and so that when we're communicating, it's easy to cross wires, and it has happened, and that's why we do it like right away. Like, if that guy wants to call it a slider, then it's a slider for our intents and purposes.
Yeah, and you make a great point, because that's why we have a sweeper. And it's like, if somebody has both pitches, think about how you have to communicate it, both the catcher to pitcher. Like, how do you call it if you're calling both a slider and you're putting down a finger, or you're pressing a button? Are you saying, throw the slider you want to throw, and how are you prepared for it? As a hitter, how are you scouting it? If you say he has 2 types of sliders, okay, what did I do? One is a sweeping slider, so we can call it a sweeper. So as a hitter, it helps you envision what the pitcher has, not saying his slider sometimes does something different. That doesn't really help you. You can break it down now. And I think the better we can break these things down, the more we can communicate. And instead of getting everybody's back up about, it's a sweeper, I've never heard that. It's like, deal with it. Like, the more precise we can get, the better we can communicate the game, both the players and the fans. So have an open mind. It's easy.
I know Luzardo has at least 4, if not 5 variations that he actually thinks about. And he wanted maps for each one. So, here comes a set of maps with like slider 1, slider 2, sweeper 1, or whatever. But that's how he thinks. And if you look, you can see some kind of pockets of, he's holding it a little different. He's doing a little different thing with it. And these are distinct pitches.
Right.
Why do we have 2 seamers and sinkers? And like, for a while we were differentiating, and now they're like, screw it, let's just throw it all together.
I still differentiate. Like, if I want to accentuate,
but that's not what a sinker is.
Right. A sinker is a pitch that goes down. A 2-seamer to me is a pitch that you're looking at the horizontal break on it, the run on it. And I think that's how I convinced Sonny Gray that he's like, I don't understand what a sweeper is. I'm like, well, you tell me that your 2-seamer, you have to think of it like a 2-seamer. You want it to run. You don't want it to sink. So yeah, right. So I get it. Yeah, if you kill vert on it and you're making it go more horizontal, it's basically, he got it. It just
and
takes that. And he's
right. And more of the spin goes into the movement versus the gyro thing.
Yeah. And guys like, again, Sonny Gray, I was thinking of him because you mentioned Luzardo, and he has got a ton of different variations of all his pitches. Brilliant. Like he's like Yu Darvish, basically. Like they're both pitching geniuses.
It's interesting. You look at a guy's pitches, and sometimes it's just like a shotgun blast, and you're like, "There, I can't fish 2 pitches out of this blob." These are just random misses, right? But other times, like, no, you can see that it's different, and so, but making sure the pitcher understands, like, this is flavor 2 and this is flavor 1, and like sometimes they don't even know they're doing it. They're like, "Well, I noticed against lefties, I kind of drop my arm down a little bit and do this." I'm like, "Well, that changes the pitch, and you could throw that to righties if you want, and it would."
But that's not how my mind works. I can't think that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, well, right. You're being paid $7 million this year. Let's spend some time thinking about it so you can make $9 million next year. Like, this is a big thing.
Yeah.
So, but other guys are like, just get rock, throw rock. So
did Luzardo ever ask you about the difference between his quick pitch and he's got multiple windups too, and that probably throws hitters off as well, and maybe shows up in some of those charts.
It does. It's a lot more feel of the moment,
right?
As to when to use it, and that's a whole skill. I mean, can you imagine certain pitchers trying to do that?
Yeah, well, right. Like you have pitchers that do it regularly. I mean, like Sonny Gray is one of those guys. I've seen you do it. You Darvish do it. I've seen Rich Hill does it.
Dick Mountain. You see me pitch? I do it, but I'm one of the guys that shouldn't do it.
Yeah, no, I definitely should. I'll do it in my basement when I'm throwing BP, but other than that, not much. Anybody else have questions out there that you want about today's games? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I'm not allowed to use the term slutter during most hours here because I made the mistake of yelling out, "That's a dirty, filthy slutter." And my wife came running out like, "What are you doing out here?" You know, and like, "I'm just watching baseball." She's never believed me. And I'm like, okay, the slutter is like, it's like a cutter and a sinker. And apparently I'm told I have bullshitted people before. I don't know where that's coming from, but apparently she thought I was doing that in this case. So,
oh, yeah,
I have to be careful not to use that term. At least not as loudly as I did, and with as much gusto.
I mean, I think you should.
I think it was Eno. I think Eno was the first guy that said it to me.
I'm trying to think. Like coaching, I've had folks.
Maybe he got it from you. I don't know.
And then definitely interviewing Glass now, he absolutely calls it a slutter. But he's got a dirty mouth anyway.
He's got movie star good looks, though.
I know he does. You get lost in his eyes. Like it was intimidating interviewing him. Any other questions before we ruin this with talk about Tyler Glasnow and his good looks? Okay, well, let's wrap it up. Who's going to win today, Fisher? No pressure. What you got?
You know, I hate picking teams, but
who's going to have the most Ks out of the starters today?
No, I think I'd rather pick the winners. I cannot bet against Zack Wheeler just with the track record. I can't bet against him. Give me straight up. I got to pick the Phillies. And just looking at this, God, Eovaldi's been so good, but
you don't think the Astros are going down? You know,
they can't hit like that again. But then again, we just saw the Dodgers wet themselves and just go flat.
Or what the Braves did,
the Braves,
right.
Like gun to my head, man. I'd probably have to pick the Astros, but it's tough just seeing how Eovaldi's been and how he could just go deep.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to think like if it was a normal game, I think he's coming up big again today. But the odds of them going down 2-0 doesn't seem likely to me. They are not, but they haven't been as good at home generally. AJ Smith-Shawver. I love AJ Smith-Shawver's just pure stuff. Young, needs some seasoning. I'd like to see him get a little bit more experience. I don't know what you have on AJ Smith-Shawver. I see that question, but any dude that's like 20 years old, has very little mileage on him and can throw 100. And I thought his breaking stuff looked pretty nasty too. So, he's definitely got a future ahead of him, but then it comes down to, can he pitch, needs experience, all that stuff.
They sure have some arms in that organization.
Well, and then you have Waldrop, who's coming up,
right.
who, like he learned this is cool. He learned his splitter from watching my interview with Kevin Gosman, or our interview. You were on that interview too. And he, like that 20-minute discussion of his splitter. Both. So we have Joe Ryan learned the splitter from that interview. George Kirby learned the splitter from the interview, and which one? Waldrop did. So we have 3 MLBs, or soon to be MLB pitchers, that have picked up that splitter from that.
Dude, if you threw a splitter, or thought you wanted to throw a splitter or whatever, why wouldn't you try that grip just to see? This is a unique grip. No one's ever taught it to you before. Like, just try it and okay. I mean, if it's not the best splitter in baseball, it's not far from the best splitter in baseball. I think it's the best of it. I mean, as long as we take out Sangas and call it a forkball, it probably is the best splitter in baseball. And I don't think you're going to, I guess Phillips Bautista, but he also throws ridiculously hard. And he's impossible. No, I mean, Gosman has a path. It is a true tunnel that he can put this thing in with regularity. And if you didn't tell yourself ahead of time not to swing, you will swing, and you will not do anything with it. You will certainly not get it in the air.
Yeah.
Knees down.
It's a fastball until it's not.
Right.
So, all right. I think we answered everybody's stuff.
All right.
Did good. Cool. Well, good job. Good job. Now let's win. Now we're going to be totally wrong, and we're all going to be messed up.
We're just rolling dice here.
You were right. We nailed it yesterday. I was like watching a game, and it was almost like we were pushing buttons on those pitches. But the odds of being 2 days in a row, it's a sport. It's a random sport. As smart as you can be, you're still never going to nail everything. But it's a lot easier watching it than doing it.
It's different here. You're going to have some of these pitchers coming at some of these hitters rather than trying to go around everything.
Yeah. So. Yep. I agree.
All right.
See y'all.
Take care.